Okay, I think we are set. So we'll get started. This year, about $500,000 will be available. That's from the city's general fund. So far, I haven't heard of any additional funding being added to that. The application is now available. You can download it from the city's website, and here's the web address. The deadline is July 31st at 5 p.m. And this year I'm asking you to just send it to me. So thgriffith@sanmarcostx.gov. I know that's different than in prior years. You can propose more than one program, but you'll need to submit a separate application for each program. Although if you are submitting more than one application, you just have to submit the information about the agency once, of course, because we can attach it to each application. So who's eligible? You have to meet the definition of a human services agency. And you'll notice it's an organization that seeks to improve the quality of their clients' lives by providing, facilitating, or recommending, so you could just be a referring agency, recommending support for an array of basic social, physical health, housing, and mental health services to needy clients in the community. You must be overseen by a board of directors. So here's the application process. As I said, they're due July 31st. We'll have an orientation for the board in August, and then we'll give them a packet of all the applications. And then starting September through November, the board will evaluate and score the applications. What we'll ask them to do is do about 6 every week, and it would be the same agencies that are presenting each week. So you should get a call sometime in August after we've gone through all the applications to set up when you're going to be presenting to the board. And then, of course, in December, it'll be December 5th this year, I'll present the board recommendations to City Council, and then City Council will make the final decision on the funding award. So this talks a little bit about what expenses are eligible, labor, supplies, material, equipment, etc. What are not: fundraising, client incentives, like, hey, we'll give you a gift card if you do such and such, furnishings and vehicles. But you can do, facility operation and maintenance, lease and phone, internet, utilities, that kind of thing, support for your operations. We do have some funding restrictions. So the funding must be spent on San Marcos residents. The program could serve more than San Marcos, but we would need to be able to show that this funding went to San Marcos residents, or like at a minimum, do some sort of proportional analysis to show that it's covering just the cost of serving San Marcos. The only exception to that is if the program is run through the school or is sort of in partnership with the school district, then the funding can be used for people within the SNC-ISD boundary for that specific program. This funding can be no more than 50% of the total agency funding. That is a quote from the rules that go along with this funding. In the past, I had written it as program funding, and the actual correct thing is it can't be more than 50% of total agency funding. So that's what we'll look at. And then City Council has now dictated that it should be no more than 20% of a full-time position. It can be used for part-time positions, or it can be used for 20% of various full-time positions, but no more than 20% for each full-time position. And the program must have been in existence for at least 2 years. That's also kind of new. That's so that this funding is not used for just brand new startup organizations. So you'll see what to submit. There's a list of items on the page on page 3, and then pages 4 through 8. You'll need to submit and answer all the questions. Please include a compelling description of your program or project. And I'm actually looking at these page numbers and thinking that may not go with the applications that's out there this year. Sorry, I don't know. We can check that after I finish the presentation. But I know there's a checklist, and then also there's a few pages with questions. This year, I think I just listed all the questions on a few pages, and you'll need to make a Word document or something to fill in the answers. Okay, enough about that. Please be sure to include a compelling description of your program or project. Be sure you really enforce the need in San Marcos. Why is this a needed program? Even if it seems obvious, I am trying to direct the board to pay attention to this in their ranking. They are going to have the difficult decision of choosing among all good programs. Like last year, we had 34 good programs. But they're going to need to rank them according to need and impact and how it fits San Marcos. Oh, and so I'm so sorry. I do not have the application up. I'll have to get it real quick. Now you can see my files. Oh, you're sorry. Here it is. This is the application that's on the website. Okay, so you have the applicant instructions. Let's make this a little bigger if I can. I'm gonna move this bar. I know this is excruciating. Okay, here we go. It's a little bigger. Okay, let's back up. Okay, first page, applicant instructions, funding requirements, funding restrictions. Please pay attention to those. Here's a little bit of information about the presentations. As I said, we'll contact you in August to schedule your presentation. It'll be in September or October, or maybe as late as November. This year I am letting you know presentation content can repeat information that's included in the application. There's been some confusion about that. Like last year I said, don't repeat what you put in the application, but I think actually the board would prefer to have some of it repeated. So I think just for your presentation, picture it as trying to give a good, really quick summary of your program, emphasizing the need and the impact on San Marcos, and then adding some human context to it. Like I think examples are always really helpful because they bring to life what the program actually does. There's the schedule. Okay, here's your checklist. So that is on page 3. This is everything you need to submit with it. And then it goes into the application. And we've posted it as a Word document. I'm hoping that works for most of you. We are asking that you type it. And so, but this year, the questions are just one after the other. So I'm expecting you to go in there and hit return and type me an answer, you know. And please feel free to, I guess, basically make it as long or as short as you feel covers the material, basically. I tried to make very clear which questions are going to impact which part of the point system. So I'm hoping this makes it also clearer for the board to look at the answers to these questions when they're considering this section for 25 points and so forth. So it goes on. And you'll just be typing. You do need to answer every question, type the answers. And then you'll just see this little certification. By signing this application, I certify the following to be true. And this is how we'll know that you are meeting the criteria that I mentioned on that other slide. This is your certification that this is true. This will simplify things for us. Like, for example, we won't have to analyze your whole agency to find out if you're paying for more than 20% of a full-time position. We'll just take your word for it, just sign it and date it and so forth, and then turn it in. The other pages are the evaluation criteria. So this will tell you exactly what the board is going to be looking at when they're trying to figure out points for each organization. I'm going to try to encourage the board to use the whole 100-point scale. It seems like, people tend to hover between 70 and 100, and I'm going to try to be like, let's try to show differentiation between what we see in these organizations. I do think they have a tough job trying to score everyone, but I'll try to encourage them to, really use the whole 100 points so that we can see a difference in the ranking, because I will be also encouraging them not to fund every organization. I also have already went over that, have gone over this with them at the public hearing meeting that was in June, and I'll be going over it again at the orientation in August. So we're trying to change some of the things that happened last year for the better. So here's all the evaluation criteria. And then they also do a quick risk assessment. And you can see what we're looking at here. What we usually end up doing is for each organization, or actually program, each application, we come up with a total risk score. And we'll use it just to label the application as high, moderate, or low risk. And that's it. And generally what we find is that most are low risk because they're simply, a social services program. So, but they'll use these criteria to come up with that total score, and then we'll just put a single word label on the application as which category it's in. Okay. Now we will go back to the presentation. Okay. So then what? You'll turn in your application. You'll have a presentation time. It'll be approximately 5 minutes, plus 5 to 10 minutes for question and answers. This year, my view is going to be kind of like you get 15 minutes total. If you want to go a little bit over in your presentation, have a little bit less for Q&A, that's fine. We'll try not to be draconian on the time limits, but 15 is that is the cutoff. Okay. Presentation logistics, we'll be having Zoom meetings. You will be a panelist on a Zoom meeting. We'll send a link to each presenter. You are welcome to attend in person. We'll be here in Building 4 on the City Hall, campus. I think it's easiest for y'all to be virtual, but you could certainly work that out with me, whatever's easier for you. You can either be just talking to the board, or you can share your screen and show a presentation. You're welcome to leave after your time, or you can stay. All meetings are public. You're welcome to listen to any meeting anytime. Content, feel free to include content from your application, show examples, and really describe what specifically this funding will accomplish. And so then the applications, as we went over, the evaluation criteria and the risk assessment are in the application form. I am going to try to really emphasize with the board. I mean, I can't dictate how they do things. That is their choice. But these are the considerations I'll be recommending to them this year very specifically. And you can tell it's related to the comments that we received about last year's process. We'll be trying to look at the highest priority needs and the highest impact. And that it is a judgment call, basically. I'll be encouraging them not to fund everyone or to use a percentage across the board. I also will be sure and mention that it's not about their personal passions. We really are trying to run an objective process that is based on the scoring. And we're really trying to be an objective board that looks at what is needed in San Marcos specifically. Another comment that we got here, which I'm going to emphasize to the board, is that we should not be judging how much resources an individual agency has, because we really don't know. Like we don't look at your finances to the extent that we would be able to tell that you have an overabundance of donations, And so we should just look at the application and its impact on San Marcos. I'm going to try to explain, don't consider that, oh, well, this one's been around a long time and they have a lot of funding and this one's small and needs some. It could be the opposite. It could be that there's so much need for a particular program that any little bit helps. So anyway, just so you know, that's what I'll be telling the board. This kind of just goes into detail on the evaluation. I won't belabor this too much. Implementation, impact and cost effectiveness. Just do your best to do a really good description. Community support is also important to the board. They would like to see 3 to 5 letters of reference. What they also look at under that category is how you use volunteers, and maybe even how many volunteers you have compared to the size of your organization. And then also, does your board participate? Like, do they have a funding requirement, or do they, show up and put hands on to the program, or whatever? Or do they just, do they attend meetings at least? Council priorities, these will have 15 points. And here's what we'll be looking at. Has the program served San Marcos residents at least 2 years? Does the agency have an office in San Marcos? And does HSAB funding create an increase in services or an increase in the number of people served? And you'll see in the application that I have added questions so that you can specifically answer those questions. Otherwise, I feel like we're guessing. And so I've put those in there where you can tell us what the answers are. Also, just FYI, the people or the agencies who were funded this year have a report due on October 15th. It's going to be sort of a first 3 quarters of the year impact report, performance report. And we'll just note whether or not that's submitted on time. We're not doing quarterly reports this year for a number of reasons, but that one report is due October 15th, and it's not worth any points. Risk assessment. We look at things like, is the program complex? The real risk that we're looking at is whether or not our funding is going to get out there and serve the community. So what we would not want to have happen is the program to fold before it gets off the ground, but it's already spent the money. So that's what we're trying to assess in the risk assessment. Okay, and then of course, December 5th, the board recommendations go to council. Hopefully they make their final decision December 5th, and then we can work out the contracts in December. The money is for the calendar year of 2024. You'll be reporting for beneficiaries and impacts. I'll have to decide, I'll have to look and see if we're going to have quarterly reports or just that one annual report next year. That came about partly because our process was so late this year. But we'll see, we'll come up with that, and that'll be part of your contract. And then payments will be reimbursements. And that is also the case in the contracts this year. We're not doing any upfront payments. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to contact me. I do prefer email just because it's simple for me to, just sort of quickly go through my emails and answer, but you're welcome to call as well. And now I will get out of this presentation and kind of go over to where I can see the questions. I'm going to stop sharing. I think we have one question in Q&A. Our program has only existed for 1 year, but is currently being funded by last year's HSAB. So we'll have to evaluate that. I would say if you will email me, we could look at the specific situation. I don't want to waste your time applying if you don't qualify, but on the other hand, I'd really rather you apply and then we see, but we could talk about your specific situation. I really can't waive the requirement. It's a council requirement, but let's talk because maybe the 2 years can be counted from certain times, that would make it a whole 2 years or really close. Do we have any other questions? You're welcome to raise your hand and I can make it where you can talk, or you're welcome to type it into the Q&A. Not seeing any questions yet. Let's see if I've covered everything. I'll give y'all a minute to think. We'll put this presentation up on the website as well, so you can refer to it. You know, you're always welcome to contact me if you have any specific questions. I'll give y'all a few more minutes to ask questions, but that's all I have for today. And so if you don't have a question, that is it. So let me see if we got another question. Is there a minimum award that will be given? There are no minimums. Staff wishes that there were, because it is a lot of paperwork, but there are no minimum awards. So it really is up to the board to make the recommendation to council. And we'll see how it goes. Could requests be partially funded? Absolutely, yes. I think even one of the questions that we put in this year is, if we are not able to fund your whole request, what is the minimum that it would take to still be able to run your program? Just to sort of give the board some idea of the minimum needed, I guess. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions, so just feel free to reach out. And I think I'll go ahead and conclude this presentation, but feel free to contact us if you have any questions. So thank you very much.